Usually when we start these deep dives on Southeast Asia, the conversation, it inevitably drifts toward the fun stuff.
The beaches, the food tours.
Exactly. We talk about the beaches in Thailand, backpacking through Vietnam, but there is one specific debate that just dominates. You see it on the expat forums, you hear it in corporate boardrooms. It's the tale of two cities.
Singapore versus Kuala Lumpur. It is the classic rivalry, isn't it?
It really is.
They're neighbors, historic siblings in a way, but they've grown up to be very, very different adults.
They really have. And look, usually people get bogged down on the emotional stuff. Who has the better chicken rice, or is Singapore too sterile versus is KL too chaotic?
Right.
But today, we are stripping all that away. We are not looking at vibes. We are looking at this rivalry through a single, cold, hard lens. The wallet.
Which, let's be honest, is the only lens that really matters right now. I mean, with global inflation, the way remote work is shifting, and how rental markets are, well, behaving globally, the question isn't just which city is more fun, it's where does the math actually work?
Exactly. So we've pulled a stack of sources, including a fascinating breakdown called Kuala Lumpur versus Singapore, where money actually goes further. And I have to admit, I went into this thinking I knew the score.
Okay.
I thought, all right, Singapore is the expensive, polished penthouse, and KL is the budget option. End of story. But it's way more nuanced than that.
It is. If you just look at the price tag, you miss the value proposition.
Yeah.
This deep dive isn't just about finding the cheapest bowl of noodles, though we will get to that.
We will.
It's about lifestyle trade-offs. It's about purchasing power. And ultimately, it's about answering a question that, more and more professionals are asking. Is the premium you pay for Singapore actually worth it anymore?
And that anymore is the key word, right? Because if you've been watching the headlines out of the Lion City, the cost of living there isn't just creeping up.
No, it's jumping.
It's jumping.
Yeah, that's right. We're seeing a trend where these rising costs aren't just an annoyance. They're fundamentally changing the calculus for businesses and expats. People are looking north across the causeway and wondering if the grass is not just greener, but significantly cheaper.
So here is our roadmap for this deep dive. We're going to break this down into the 4 pillars of your bank account. First, the roof over your head, from luxury splurges to the rental crisis.
Okay.
Second, the culinary divide, street food economics versus Michelin stars. Third, the daily grind transportation and the latte index. And finally, we'll look at that quality of life factor. Is the efficiency of Singapore worth the price of admission?
It's a comprehensive look, and honestly, that quality of life metric is the hardest to quantify, but it's probably the most important one.
Let's start with the biggest fixed cost for anyone, accommodation, the place you lay your head.
Right, and the source material draws a pretty sharp line in the sand here right away.
If you're looking for the absolute pinnacle of luxury, I'm talking crazy rich Asian style, 5-star service, views that make you feel like royalty, Singapore is king.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Singapore has built a reputation for these opulent options. If you're on a short trip and you want to splurge, or your company's picking up the tab, the density of high-end hotels is just unmatched.
You pay for it, though.
Oh, you definitely pay for it. But the experience is incredibly polished.
But, and this is a big but, if you aren't looking to drop a month's salary on a weekend getaway, the source suggests the pendulum swings hard towards Kuala Lumpur.
It does. KL shines when it comes to what you might call budget-friendly luxury. You can stay in a 5-star hotel in the Golden Triangle of Kuala Lumpur with the rooftop infinity pool. The whole works for a fraction of what a standard 3-star might cost you in Singapore.
That's the tourist view. But what about the people actually living there? Because this is where the data gets a little scary if you're a renter in Singapore. Scary is a fair word. The rental market there has been, it's been heating up incredibly fast. We're looking at data showing rents jumping 20, even 30% in a single year.
30%? That's a massive hit. That's not just inflation. That is a market correction that hurts.
It's lifestyle-altering money. It's pushing expats who were drawn to the buzz of Singapore to seriously reconsider. You're paying significantly more for the exact same 4 walls you had last year.
Now, the source mentions a middle ground that I think is really important, especially for our listeners who might be business travelers or, digital nomads. They talk about service departments.
Yes, the bridge between a hotel and a lease. You get the housekeeping, the utilities are included, but you also get a kitchen, more space. It's less commitment, but more comfortable than living out of a suitcase.
And this is actually a perfect time to mention something that solves this specific headache. If you're looking for that middle ground for a month-long project or relocation, you need to know about moveandstay.com. Absolutely, we see that name come up a lot. Moveandstay.com has been the go-to resource for this exact niche for over 25 years. They specialize in connecting business travelers with service departments, hotels, and even serviced offices all across Asia-Pacific.
And what I like is that they are trusted by professionals, by corporate teams. It isn't just a generic vacation site. They get what you need when you're actually living and working somewhere.
That distinction is crucial. When you're staying for 3 months, you need reliable Wi-Fi, a workspace. You have different needs than a tourist. Move and Stay gets that.
So if we apply this back to our city comparison, in Singapore, a service department you find on Move and Stay is a great solution. It locks in your rate and shields you from that crazy rental market we just talked about.
Exactly. It gives you predictability. But if you use a tool like Move and Stay to find a place in KL, well, you are going to find incredible value. We're talking massive apartments, full amenities, for a price that would get you a shoebox elsewhere.
So if you're navigating this market, especially for an extended stay, a specialized tool like moveandstay.com is pretty essential.
It really takes the guesswork out of it.
Okay, so you've got a roof over your head. Now, you need to eat. And honestly, this is the part of the deep dive I was most excited about.
Naturally. Food is central to life in Southeast Asia.
The source calls this the culinary divide, and let's be clear, both cities are absolute food paradises.
They are. They share a lot of culinary DNA. Nasi lemak, laksa. You'll find them in both cities. And there's let's call it a friendly rivalry over who owns these dishes.
Right. But when you look at the economics of the street food, the hawker culture, that gap starts to widen again.
It comes down to what we call street food economics. In Kuala Lumpur, the street food scene is arguably more raw and authentic, but crucially is incredibly cheap. You can get a plate of satay or noodles for just a few Malaysian ringgit.
The source mentions Char Kway Teow specifically. In KL, you're grabbing this for pennies on the dollar compared to Singapore.
It's true. And look, Singapore's hawker culture is world-renowned. It's UNESCO recognized, it's clean, regulated. But that polish comes with a price. A daily lunch at a Singaporean hawker center, while still cheap by Western standards, adds up significantly over a month compared to doing the same in KL.
So KL wins on the cheap eats front. But what if I want to dress up, tablecloth, sommelier, the whole 9 yards?
Then Singapore pulls ahead aggressively. The density of international cuisine and Michelin-starred restaurants there is staggering.
Right.
If you want any kind of food prepared by a celebrity chef, it is right there.
For a price.
For a very steep price.
Okay.
A top-tier meal in Singapore can easily rival prices in New York or London.
There's another really fascinating layer here that the source pointed out, the cultural demographics and how they impact the menu.
This is a great point. It's about accessibility. Kuala Lumpur has a larger Muslim population, so the halal options are extensive. You can walk into almost any place and find high-quality halal food. It makes social dining very inclusive.
Whereas
Singapore, with its Chinese majority, is the place to go for authentic, pork-centric cuisine. If you're looking for those traditional dishes that rely heavily on pork, Singapore often offers a more authentic experience in that specific vertical.
So the verdict on food seems to be, go to KL for value and everyday authenticity, go to Singapore for variety and high-end splurges.
It's a pretty fair summary.
All right, let's move to the daily grind, getting from point A to point B.
This is where we see the most stark contrast in infrastructure philosophy.
Singapore is famous for this, the MRT.
Efficiency personified. It's clean, reliable, it covers the whole island. You can genuinely live in Singapore without a car and never feel limited. In fact, owning a car is actively discouraged.
But I feel like there's always a but with Singapore lately. The costs are creeping in.
The ouch factor, yeah. Public transport fares have gone up, but the real shock is ride-sharing. The source notes that a Grab ride, the Southeast Asian Uber that used to be maybe 12 to 14 Singapore dollars, is now hitting $22 to $25.
That's nearly double. That changes your Friday night plans. It changes whether you bother going across town for a meeting.
It does. Now, you flip to Kuala Lumpur. The public transport, the LRT and monorail, it's developing, it's getting better, but it's not comprehensive. You often find yourself needing a car.
And we have to mention the traffic.
The traffic in KL is a real issue. It can be gridlock, but if you take a car, the cost is so much lower.
The source had a great stat on this. A Grab food order in KL, delivery included, might only be about 30 ringgit. That's like, what, 6 or 7 US dollars?
Exactly. The ride-sharing prices are just worlds apart. So in KL, you might sit in traffic longer, but you aren't watching the meter spin with the same anxiety.
Let's do a quick lightning round. The cost of living basket. I'll name the item, you give me the comparison.
Let's do it.
Item 1, a pint of local beer.
In Singapore, you're looking at 8 to 12 US dollars. Easy. In KL, more like $3 to $5. The sin tax on alcohol in Singapore is real.
Oof. Okay, next up, a cappuccino. The fuel of the modern worker.
Singapore, $4 to $6. KL, $2.50 to $4. The latte index, and KL wins comfortably.
That adds up over a year. How about staying fit, monthly gym membership?
This is a big one. Singapore, you're looking at $70 to $150 a month. In KL, it's more like $30 to $60 for comparable facilities.
And finally, a movie ticket.
Singapore, $10 to $15. KL, $5 to $8.
So across the board, the purchasing power heavily favors Kuala Lumpur.
It's the exchange rate. The Malaysian ringgit simply stretches further. Your basket of goods is just bigger.
Which leads us perfectly into the lifestyle question. Because money is just a tool to buy a lifestyle, right?
Correct. You don't save money just to look at the number. You save it to live a certain way.
The source touches on something I want to call the efficiency tax.
That's a great way to frame it. In Singapore, you are paying a premium. And what are you buying? You're buying safety, manicured streets, a system that works on time every time. You're buying glitz.
But in KL,
you're in a looser environment. Maybe the sidewalk is uneven. Maybe the bus is late. But the lower cost of living buys you freedom.
freedom to do what?
Freedom from financial anxiety. The freedom to say, let's go out for a nice dinner without checking your bank app first. The freedom to have hobbies, to travel on weekends, to live in a bigger space. It's mental bandwidth.
We're actually seeing this play out, aren't we? Expats moving from Singapore to KL.
It's becoming a well-trodden path. The source highlighted a case study, a guy named Benedict Becker.
Right, Benedict.
He moved from a one-bedroom condo in Singapore to a co-living space in KL. And here's the kicker. He actually took a pay cut to make the move.
He took a pay cut. Usually you move for a raise.
He did. But because his expenses dropped so dramatically, his savings actually increased.
That is the magic math right there. He earns less on paper, but keeps more in his pocket.
Well, think about the rent. A one-bedroom in Singapore is easily 2,200, 3,000 Singapore dollars. In KL, you can find a great spot for a fraction of that. He effectively gave himself a raise by moving to a cheaper city.
So, is there any reason to stay in Singapore? I mean, we're making KL sound like a paradise.
Oh, absolutely. We cannot discount Singapore's massive advantages. It's a global business hub. The startup scene is vibrant. The government actively courts global talent with things like the One Pass.
Yeah, and the safety factor.
It's one of the safest cities on earth. If you have a young family, that peace of mind is worth a lot of money. It's polished, it's predictable. For many professionals, that stability is key.
Whereas KL.
KL is a bit more chaotic, but it is also what the source calls a nature hub.
Yes. The source made a big point of this.
If you're in Singapore, your nature escape is, well, it's a beautifully manicured park or a flight out of Changi. In KL, you have the Cameron Highlands just to drive away. You have Port Dickson for beaches, Taman Negara for real rugged rainforest trekking.
So if you're an adventure junkie on a budget, KL is your base camp.
Precisely. It allows for a more spontaneous style of travel that's much harder to pull off in Singapore.
Okay, let's try to land the plane here. We've compared the two heavyweights.
In summary, Singapore is the slick, efficient, business class experience. It's safe, impressive, but you're going to feel every single transaction in your wallet.
And Kuala Lumpur.
KL is the laid-back, slightly chaotic, but incredibly high-value option. It requires more patience, especially with traffic, but it rewards you with a lifestyle where you aren't counting every penny.
It really comes down to what you value more. Order or freedom?
That's the question I want to leave the listener with. We often equate quality of life with how clean the streets are, but I'd ask you, is that efficiency worth a 30 or 40% premium on your entire life? Or does a slightly more chaotic environment actually offer more true quality of life just because you aren't stressed about the cost of living?
That's a tough one to answer. It definitely depends on where you are in life. Are you chasing the career peak or the lifestyle balance? Well, whether you choose the glitz of Singapore or the value of Kuala Lumpur, you're going to need a place to stay. And remember, if you need a home base that works as hard as you do, check out moveandstay.com. They've been solving this puzzle for travelers across Asia for decades.
A great tool for either city.
Thanks for diving in with us today. It's always fascinating to look past the postcards and into the receipts.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.